friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Emily, and this is my booktube channel where I like to talk all about cozy, wholesome, typically vintage books. Today I am going to be talking about my March reading wrap-up. I had a pretty great reading month in March, especially coming after February where I read, like I think less than 10 books or something, which is a pretty low reading month for me. March had but definitely picked up the pace and I read a good bit. A couple things to note here. As always, I do not count the total number of books that I have read each month, and so I won't be talking about that number or anything. I calculate that up at the end of the year. And two, this is something I've been thinking about doing for a while, and I'm going to try and figure out how to do it. I am going to be adding chapters to my videos. I'm going to check with my husband and see if he can show me how to do it because he's been doing it for his videos. I am going to try and add chapters to my videos, so if there's a specific book that I talk about that you really don't want to hear anything about or whatnot, you can just skip to the next book. And the reason for this is that I've been thinking about it for a while. I have a hard time summarizing books without talking more about the plot than probably most people want to hear. And so what I'm going to do is there are probably going to be spoilers about each book, so if it's a book that you want to read, you can just skip over that section until you've read it, and then if you're interested you can come back and hear my thoughts on it. I'm going to try and do that for the next few videos and see how it works, see what you guys think, see what I think. I love talking about books and really explaining what I think about them and stuff, and it's so hard to do that, for me at least, without sharing too much of the plot. And I know most people out there really dislike spoilers. I'm, as far as I know, an anomaly in that I actually love spoilers. It helps me get a better idea of whether or not I'm going to like a book or a movie or what have you. My family used to just be appalled because we would be sitting down for a movie night and it's a movie none of us have seen before, and I'm sitting there on my phone looking up the Wikipedia plot so that I know what's going to happen, and they're all just like, what is wrong with you? For my personality, it makes me feel a lot better because then I don't like major surprises, plot twists, things like that. I think that's why I've been so thoroughly enjoying the more, as Jen from Jen's Reading Life calls it, domestic fiction, like D.E. Stevenson, is because there's not usually any sort of huge plot twist, crazy thing that happens. And I like that. That's why I love rereading books. That's how I work. But I know that most people aren't like that and they don't like spoilers. So that's what I'm going to try to do. If I can't get the chapters to work, then I will just have timestamps in the description box down below, and you can just see which books I'm going to talk about and which ones you need to skip over if you need to. So, that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. So, this month I read a decent amount of Louis L'Amour books. I believe I mentioned it in my last reading wrap-up video that I'm working on reading my way chronologically through the Louis L'Amour Sackett series, and I read the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The next 11 books in the series. I think there's 17 or 18 or something altogether, and that counts a couple of short story collections where there is one short story in that collection that has to do with the Sackett family. So I read the next several books in the series. I highly recommend them as always. They're all rereads for me. I absolutely love them. I read To the Far Blue Mountains, which is the second book, and that's talking about Barnabas Sackett. Then I read The Warrior's Path, which is talking about Barnabas Sackett's sons, Kenring and Yance. And then I read, oh no, excuse me, I only read the next 10 because The Hanging Woman Creek was just one of Louis L'Amour's standalone novels. Then I read Jubal Sackett, which is about Jubal. Then I read Ride the River, and there's a pretty significant year gap between those two. So Jubal Sackett is still in the 1600s, early settlement of America. Ride the River is, I believe it's shortly after the Civil War. I think that's where it is. Or no, it's shortly before. It's like shortly before the Civil War. And it's about Echo Sackett, and she travels down from the mountains to collect some money that was advertised in the newspaper, the youngest living relative in the Sackett family of Kenring Sackett, and she's the youngest one, so she's like 16, and so she's traveling down to the big city to collect on this newspaper clipping, and all of her adventures collecting said money and then trying to get back home. Really lovely. It's very enjoyable. There's lots of kind of funny bits because she's just this like spunky mountain girl who really could hold her own, because she had a number of brothers, and so she was the only girl, and it was really fun. So there's that one. And then the Daybreakers, let's see, yeah, the Daybreakers is, I think it may have been the first Sackett book that Louis L'Amour wrote. I can't remember for sure, but it is about Orrin and Tal Sackett, who are brothers, or not Tal, Tyrell. Orrin and Tyrell, who end up traveling west for reasons and talking about their adventures, and they're trying to find a ranch for their mom, to get their mom, who's back in the Tennessee hills, to move with them onto this ranch and earn enough money to actually like really provide for her in her old age. It's a very sweet reason. But yeah, there's all kinds of adventures and things, and lovely. All of them are adventures. And then I read Into the Drive, which is one of the short story collections that has a short story in it. And then I read Lando, which is about Orlando Sackett, he's another Sackett that's up in the Tennessee hills, and he travels with the Tinker, and they're going to try and find out like what happened to his father, and they're investigating this mysterious quest. I'm not going to say too much about it because I don't want to ruin it. But that one's really fun. I actually really enjoy that one. That one's one of my favorites. And then I read Sackett, which is all about Tal Sackett and some of his adventures. And then Mojave Crossing. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. Probably not. But as again, more adventures of Tal Sackett. And then I read the Sackett Brand, which honestly I think is probably the most depressing of Louis L'Amour's books, just in the beginning. It's a very tragic thing that happens. Check the trigger warnings. Really sad there at the beginning, but then the rest of it is just so good. Like, it has such a good ending. It's not necessarily like an all happy fluffy ending, but it's like a right ending. And that one is really fun because in the Sackett clan, if you would like to think of it that way, when any one Sackett is in trouble, the news gets out and all the other Sacketts show up, and that happens like in the biggest way, I think, in this book. And it's just like, it almost gives you goosebumps a little bit, because there's this one chapter where it's talking about like different Sacketts, and they find out that there's a Sackett in trouble, and so it's like everybody is like coming to help, and you're just like it's so good. But that one was a little bit of a downer because of the beginning part, and so I kind of stopped after that one, which I knew was going to kind of happen, but I'll get to the rest of them in a minute. I just needed a little break for something a little bit lighter and fluffier. So those were all of the Sackett books that I read this month. And then let me go back to beginning of the month. I read The Lark Shall Sing by Elizabeth Cadell, which was a book that I just happened to see on Kindle Unlimited. And this one was about, what was her first name? I pulled the book up so that I could actually remember it. Did I pull it up? Oh no, I didn't pull it up. It's about this family of like 5 or 6 kids, can't remember, and their parents died, and so then they all were kind of dispersed. Like, one of the boys had to go and serve his like couple of years in the military, the army. This is all in England. And then one girl went to be like, the oldest daughter went to be a companion for an older lady. The son went to be work in the army. One of the girls went to work in London, and then the 3 youngest kids, there's kind of a significant age gap between the 3 older kids and the 3 younger kids. And then the 3 younger kids are in like boarding school or staying with an aunt and uncle. And the oldest daughter has just recently become engaged, and she is planning to sell the family house that they were all living in together. She's going to sell the family house and because they just don't have the money, the funds to continue maintaining it, like keeping the house. And so she writes letters to all of her siblings, and then all of the siblings, none of this is a major plot because pretty much all of this is in the summary, like the description. All of the siblings volubly protest, at least to themselves, and so then they all just converge upon the family mansion where the oldest daughter is, or the oldest girl is, trying to like get things together to sell the house. And they all come and they're just like, no, you can't sell our house. And there's all sorts of funny little adventures and things, and it's just, it was a lot of fun to read. I believe there are 2 more books in the series, which I would also really like to read, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But that was my first Elizabeth Cadell. Again, I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce it, but that was my first one of her books to read. I would say she's very much in the similar vein as D.E. Stevenson, Molly Clavering, like that sort of genre, like the light novel. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I would like to read more of her books. Then I read, I believe it's like 3 or 4 different D.E. Stevenson books. So the first one I read was The House on the Cliff, and that one is, let me see, here we go. Let me just read you the plot, the summary. Elfrida Jane, accustomed to the energetic life of a small part-time actress, finds life at Mountain Cross very different. At first, her mother's old cliff-top house seems lonely and bleak compared to the glitter and bustle of the theater. But Elfrida has plenty of courage and soon settles down to enjoy herself. Then suddenly her peace is shattered. To the house on the cliff come unexpected visitors from the world of the theater, a world Elfrida thought she had left behind forever. This one is a really, really sweet story because that one doesn't give a great description of it, but this poor girl who, her mother has recently died, and she finds out that she, through her mom, has inherited this beautiful mansion in, I believe it's Scotland again. She's been working in London. They've been really poor, really destitute, like trying to take care of her mother and all this stuff. So she's able to move to this beautiful house on the cliff. And she's very poor, like there's no money, that's just the house. And so it kind of talks about her like moving there and being able to eat all the food and get the sunlight and get out in the country and like kind of regain her health back. And then it talks about like all the friends she makes and like small village life, and it was lovely, as all of the D.E. Stevenson books are. It was very excellent. It was so good. I have realized that D.E. Stevenson has become one of those authors that I so trust that I know that the book is going to be good. Like it's going to have a good ending. It's going to be happy. Like it's not going to be gloomy and depressing and all that. And so pretty much there is one exception to it that I did want to mention. I'll talk about it in a second. But all of her books that I have read so far have been amazing. So I feel pretty confident in trying out the other ones. And then another book that I read by her was Still Glides the Stream. And let me pull that up here. This one is when Will Hasty finally decides to retire from the military and return home to Scotland. He intends to settle down on his family estate and learn to become a farmer. But back home, the death of his best friend and neighbor, Ray, during World War II is still strongly felt. In particular, Ray's sister Patty has been brooding for the past 10 years over Ray's final letter home from France. When she decides to share the letter with Will, it sends him off to France to discover for himself the circumstances of Ray's death, and his discovery there changes the lives of all those left behind. Again, really lovely, beautiful descriptions of Scotland. Will is coming home. It's after World War II, and he's living with his father, and the adjoining estate, if you will, is where his best friends Will, Ray and Patty lived, and they grew up together as kids, and it's just such beautiful, beautiful descriptions of the countryside and wonderful, fun characters. And then, like it says, at one point he has to go off to France, and it was really interesting, like the descriptions of different French things, like the market life and like the color and the sunshine and just the way that she wrote it. It was just so descriptive and beautiful and just lovely, as always. And then, let me see, was that the last one? No, I read Crooked Adam. Crooked Adam was really good. It was a little bit different in that the main character is a guy. And there's not really a main girl character until like a good chunk of the way into the book. And this one's about Crooked Adam, or Adam. He's a school teacher at a boys' school, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It's like I think it was he broke his leg when he was a child, and so then one of his legs is slightly shorter than the other one, and so they won't accept him into the army, and he's just like, ugh, he wants to go and fight for his country. It's during World War II. And so then he ends up instead helping out this, he's working at the school, the headmaster, that's what the word is. The headmaster of the school was his old headmaster when he was a schoolboy, and then he realizes that his headmaster has this project that he's working on, and somebody is trying to get said project, and so it ends up thrusting Adam into this whole world of adventure and scheming and just different plots and things that he has to like go into, and in a way it's his discovery that he's not lesser than just because he has this limp, this funny way of walking. He kind of comes into his own, and so good. What can I say? Like, without completely spoiling it, what can I say? It was so lovely and so fun, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, quickly here, this is a book that I have technically DNF'd. I think I will come back to it at some point and finish it, but it's another D.E. Stevenson book, and it's completely different from any of the other D.E. Stevenson books that I have read. And I didn't get particularly far into it because I was reading it kind of at night, and it was a little bit spooky almost. It's a weird, like, end of the world, like, I think it would be classified as like post-apocalyptic thriller type of a book, which is just so not what I was expecting, because this is D.E. Stevenson we're talking about. Oh, there's my baby. Hold on, let me get my baby and then I'll finish talking about this one. Okay, I have a special guest over here, so he will probably start trying to attack the camera any minute, but let me read this summary. The book is called The Empty World by D.E. Stevenson. And it says, boarding an airliner headed from New York to London, writer Jane Forrest knows it will be a turbulent flight. An electrical storm stands between Jane and London. When a spectacular surge of lightning illuminates the clouds below them and the airliner is knocked off course, Jane turns to the dashing, intelligent Sir Richard Barton in the next seat. As dawn breaks, Jane realizes there are no lights on the ground and the radio is jammed. When the airliner is safely landed on a deserted airfield, they find cars abandoned and a mysterious lack of people on the deathly silent streets of Glasgow. Believing she will be safe in the arms of Sir Richard, it is not until he is mysteriously taken ill that Jane questions her love. It says it's a touching yet thrilling sci-fi romantic classic from D.E. Stevenson. Again, so not what I was expecting. I started reading it initially and it was like, and then read a couple other books and then came back to it and read a bit more of it, and like I said, it was at night and it was just kind of spooky and weird and just, it's not like apocalyptic type end of the world thrillers is not really my thing. So I haven't finished it. I do think I would like to finish it at some point because I am interested to know like how this would all work out. It was very odd. But if that's your thing and you like D.E. Stevenson, you might enjoy it. So that was all the D.E. Stevenson books that I read. And then I ended up reading a couple of, well, like 4 new to me authors. And then another reread. So I read No Time for Love by Emilie Loring, which is a book that was recommended to me by one of my friends, and she recommended a couple of different authors, and I love this one so much. It's more of a modern day, like there's cars and phones and all of that sort of thing. And it's like a romance, more of a modern day romance. That was the word that I was going to say. And then I'll just read you the description for this one. Julie Bryce is beautiful and independent. She doesn't know exactly what she wants in a man, but he mustn't be rich, powerful, or handsome. Yet whilst investigating a jewel theft that has clouded her family's good name, Julie is drawn into a world of international intrigue where she meets Mark Sefton and falls for him hard. Rich, powerful, handsome, mysterious, and with no time for love. Will Mark be the one to change Julie's attitude forever? I thoroughly enjoyed this. It says that Emilie Loring was an American romance author who started writing in 1914 and continued writing until her death in 1951. So it was really good. It basically explains what it's about. Very much enjoyed it. There were lots of cute, like, sweet moments, and but it's definitely more of like a, I guess, like big city vibes rather than like the little English country vibes. So yeah, again, it's so hard to like completely talk about these without spoiling things, but very, very much enjoyed that book, and I'm definitely going to be trying to find some more books by Emilie Loring. It was just really nice. Like, it was definitely more of an adventure / like a little bit of a mystery book, but really good. So that one, and then I read Mara, Daughter of the Nile by Eloise Jarvis McGraw, and this is a reread for me. This was one of my all-time favorite childhood books. I have yet to get a physical copy of it, but I need to get one sooner rather than later, because this is one that I don't think is in regular print anymore. Again, I thought that about The Good Master in the last video, so I could be completely wrong, but it's about Mara, who is a slave girl, and in ancient Egypt. It's in ancient Egypt, and she is this like really independent, very intelligent girl, and her previous master had taught her how to read and write both Egyptian and Babylonian, and so she's way smarter than like most of your average Egyptians at that time period, and she sneaks out of the house and is out in the marketplace, and then she gets seen by a couple of different characters in the book, and lo and behold, after she gets home, one of said characters ends up purchasing her and turn for his slave, but he wants to use her as a spy in the castle, and then she gets caught up in this whole like political intrigue of like overthrowing the pharaoh and finding who's wanting to overthrow the pharaoh, and like it's this whole thing, and it is an excellent summer book because it's Egypt, and so it's hot, and it's talking about it being very hot, and like just the different descriptions of the pharaoh's palace and Thebes, where they're living in, if that's how you pronounce it, and just like the clothes that they're wearing and everything. Like, it's just, I wish that I could find more books by Eloise Jarvis McGraw, because she's one of my favorite authors. Mara, Daughter of the Nile and The Golden Goblet are two of her Egyptian books. I don't know if she wrote more than that, but those are the two that I'm familiar with. And they were two of my all-time favorite books growing up as a child. So it is my plan actually to reread The Golden Goblet this year as well. So stay tuned for that, but either of those make excellent summer reads. Then I read, let me see here. Okay, then I read, the next two books that I read were both books that I saw from Jen of Jen's Reading Life. She had recommended these in a couple of different videos, and so I decided to try them out. Hopefully he's not being too loud and making it hard to hear me. Nah, you leave my tripod alone, sir. Yeah. The first one is A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. This is the first in the Lady Hardcastle mystery series, which I didn't realize there's like 12 or 13 books. Maybe it was more than that. Maybe it's like 15 or something. But anyway, it's the first book in the series, and it's about Lady Hardcastle and her servant friend who moved to the country, and they are caught up in this small English village, like murder mystery. Like, that's what it is. The quips and the banter, the wittiness between the characters, like their relationship, like they are such good friends even though they're technically a mistress and a servant, and it was so much fun to read. I read this book so quickly, and I very much want to read the rest of the books in this series. I'm kind of a little bit doing that thing where it's like you're really highly anticipating reading the book, but you just don't you like hold off on reading said book. I just need to get the next book on my Kindle and then I can read it. So good. Highly recommend it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It is kind of interesting to me because most of the time, like Golden Age murder mysteries, I think this one's set in like 1909 or something. Like it's pre-World War One, and but it was written in like 2015 or something. I usually find that books that are written by modern day authors but set in the Golden Age period are not as good as books that were actually written by people who had lived through that Golden Age period. I typically find that they're filled with a lot of like modern day ideology and stuff, and that it just doesn't fit with what they should be writing about. This one did not do that. It did an excellent job of actually feeling like it was set in that time period. So, highly recommended. I love it. I'm going to try and read the next few books. So good. It was like perfect murder mystery type of a book. And like I said, just the banter back and forth between the two main characters was excellent. So good. I was like laughing. I'm not a very expressive person. Like when I'm reading and stuff, it is very, very rare that I will laugh out loud sort of a thing. But I was very much laughing internally. And there were a few times where it got me to do at least a chuckle out loud. So. Then the next one that I read was Business as Usual by Jane Oliver and Anne Stafford. Oh my goodness. So good. So much fun. This is a, Anne Stafford and Jane Oliver are actually pseudonyms for two women who wrote apparently a number of books together, so I am definitely interested in trying out some more of their novels. But this particular one is written in the letter format, and it is about Helen, who is, she is engaged to Basil, and they are going to have to wait a year before they can get married. So she decides that instead of sitting at home and just twiddling her thumbs, she is going to go to London and find a job. And then the book is all about her like writing letters back to her fiance and her family. And it's so good. Like each of the letters, or most of the letters, are filled with these little like pencil drawings. Like they're supposed to be that she made the drawings, and they were just so charming. I loved it. I would love to get a physical copy of this book. Again, I read pretty much. I don't think I read a single physical copy of a book this month, which has been a goal of mine. So maybe I can get one before the month ends. But it was so fun and wholesome, and the way that she writes, like she's just writing, she ends up getting a job in a department store, and so she's like writing about some of like the day-to-day life, like funny things that happen, and the hard things and the weird things, and like the working with her different co-workers, and it's, I loved it. I really, really, really loved it. Again, this was one that I read so quickly. I think it took me about a day to read it. Like I couldn't put it down. So I'm definitely going to be investigating some more books by these authors because I love the way that it was written. And apparently they wrote a number of romance books together as a duo, and then both women actually wrote books by themselves. So I would love to investigate some of their other romances. And then the last book that I have to talk about today is The Wallflowers by Temple Bailey. And this is another book that was recommended to me by the same friend who recommended Emilie Loring. And oh, I loved it so much. Like so much. The writing reminded me a lot of Louisa May Alcott. Like it was a similar feel to it. And it's about these twin sisters who live with their mother, and they have become recently impoverished, and so they've had to move to the city. It's in America. They've had to move to the city. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Washington, D.C., and they have to move away from the family estate. They're living in this tiny little apartment with the three of them, and the mom has to go and work, and she's working so hard to provide for her daughters, but she's honestly quite miserable because she's used to actually being able to live in a proper home rather than what she keeps calling the efficiency apartment. And then the two sisters are Sandra and Theodora, but she goes by like Dodie. It's Doady. I kept calling her Dodie in my head, but I don't know if that's exactly how it would be said. Sandra and her mom are kind of more daydreamers. Like they're not completely impractical, but they believe in the romance of life, I guess is how I would describe it. And Theodora is much more practical. She's just like, we need to like get ahead and fit in with society, and so she is like trying to find a job, and it's just the story of, it's kind of their coming of age story. The book starts out when they're 18 and they're both pretty naive and young. They've been living in the country, and so then they move to the city and it's all glamour and like the people, and it's I loved it so much, like so much so that I've already gotten a couple more of Temple Bailey's books on my Kindle because I just love the writing so much. It was very like wholesome, sweet, excellent ending, like all of the things that I love. And it was like that old-fashioned, again, like Louisa May Alcott style book. Amazing. Highly recommend it. So, that is all the books that I have to share with you today. It is only the 29th of March, but my husband took the toddler away to go and do stuff at his parents' house, so I had to take advantage of the opportunity to go ahead and film, because I really want to try and get my monthly wrap-up book videos done closer to the beginning of the month rather than halfway through the month. So I thought if I went ahead and filmed it today, then I could work on getting it edited and get it released within the first week of April. So that is a plan. If I end up reading any more books before the end of March, I may try to pop back in here and film another little clip, but we shall see. Hello friends, happy April. It's officially April 1st today, and I just wanted to quickly pop in here at the end of this video to let you know that I did manage to actually finish one more book, and then there was one book that I had forgotten that I had finished I hadn't written it down on the list on my phone, so I forgot about it. So I also finally managed to read the final book in the Mrs. Pollifax series by Dorothy Gilman, I believe, and it is Mrs. Pollifax Unveiled, I think. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's the final book in the series. You don't want to know the details for it, but if you're not familiar with the Mrs. Pollifax series, they're sort of what I would classify as a cozy spy thriller adventure book. So it's all about, the whole series is about Mrs. Pollifax, who is an older lady who her husband has died, she's a widow, and she decides that she's kind of lost interest in life to some degree, and so she decides one day that she's just going to go to the CIA and volunteer to be a spy. And it carries on from there. She's a very classy, dignified lady, and it's just lovely. And so I spent a good part of last year or I guess I spent last year reading through most of the series. And so I finally read the final book, and it was so good. I do think that is a series that I will be revisiting in the future. I would love to reread it again and just remind myself of all the things that happened way back at the beginning of the series. But it is an excellent, excellent series. Highly recommend it. I did so thoroughly enjoy it. But yeah, so I had already finished that book, but I just forgot to write it down. And then I did finish just yesterday? Yeah, just yesterday. So on March 31st, I finished reading 2 Weeks to Remember by Betty Neels. So I did accomplish my my only reading goal this year is to hopefully try and read at least one physical copy of a book each year or each month. And so I hadn't done that yet in March, and then I realized that I only had maybe a third of this book left, and I was like, ooh, I bet I could finish that in 2 days. And I did. It was fine. So this is all about Charity, who works as a typist in a hospital, and then she ends up getting a different job with the rich English doctor in this edition. He's not the rich Dutch doctor. Professor Wiley Lyon. His name is Jake. And so she becomes a secretary for him, and she's working for him, and then they end up having to go away on a 2 weeks business trip, and it's a classic Betty Neels. Super sweet, wholesome romance, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So those were the last 2 books that I finished up in the month of March. I hope that you have enjoyed this reading wrap-up video, and I'll see you soon in April for some more videos. I know I'm going to have a book haul video that's coming up, and I was thinking about doing a books I'd like to read video. I don't really do a TBR because I find that anytime I do an official TBR, I just don't want to read those books anymore. I don't know what it is about my stubborn nature, but that's the way that it works. I'll be like, I'm going to read this book and then I don't want to touch those books. So I've been kind of thinking about sort of talking about some of the books that I'd like to read. I also did a really fun thing recently where I went through and counted all of the books on my shelf, the physical books that I own that I have not read yet. So I was thinking that could be a fun video to talk about some of those books. But yeah. All that being said, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you found some books that you are intrigued or interested in reading. I would love to know what books you've been reading this month and what you are looking forward to reading this spring. Hey. If you liked and enjoyed the video, please feel free to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. I do so love reading your comments. I'm a little slow on responding to them, but I do love reading them, and if it takes me a while, I do try to eventually answer all of the comments. So yes, thank you so much for being here and supporting the channel, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!